I have negotiated ceasefires between rival asteroid clans. I have stood before admirals whose fleets could vaporize continents. I have memorized 17 alien dialects and survived first contact protocols that would make most diplomats resign on the spot. But nothing in my training prepared me for the moment an alien woman raised one elegant brow at my mistake and quietly changed the course of my life. It happened on Orialis station, and it began with a mistranslation. Arrival at the edge of neutral space. Orialis station hovered at the unstable border between Terran Union territory and the Thalrex collective, a species older than humanity by at least 3 millennia. The station was neutral ground. No weapons beyond personal defense fields. No military vessels within a 2 light-minute radius. Just diplomats, traders, and watchers. The Thalrex were not hostile. They were not friendly either. They were selective. Humanity had been attempting to secure a research exchange agreement with them for years. Their advancements in gravitational manipulation were decades ahead of ours. In return, we offered biosynthetic medical innovations and terraforming algorithms. It was delicate. It required precision. Which is why I, senior diplomatic envoy Adrian Vale, had been chosen to lead the talks. And which is why what happened next was so mortifying. 2. First contact again. The Thalrex delegation entered the chamber with fluid grace. They were tall, slender, their skin a muted silver blue that reflected light in subtle gradients. Instead of hair, fine filament-like tendrils framed their heads, shifting color with emotional states. And at their center was her, Representative Lyrie Veth. She was introduced as the chief negotiator, a rare honor among her people. Her eyes were a deep amber, almost metallic, and disturbingly perceptive. When she looked at you, it felt less like observation and more like analysis. We exchanged formal greetings. The chamber's atmospheric balance adjusted slightly for her physiology. Translation nodes activated. I delivered my opening statement in formal Thalrexian. Or, at least, I thought I did. The sentence I intended to say was, "Humanity approaches with respect and cooperative intent." What I actually said was, "Humanity approaches with reproductive enthusiasm." There was a pause. A long one. The translation nodes flickered uncertainly. The Terran delegation behind me went rigid, and Lyrie Veth raised one perfectly arched brow. Then she smirked. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't mocking. It was intrigued. "You are direct human Vale," she said smoothly. My internal implants immediately replayed my spoken phrasing. Horror flooded me. I corrected myself at once. "My apologies, Representative. I appear to have selected an imprecise verb." A faint ripple of shimmering light passed through her cranial tendrils, the Thalrex equivalent of suppressed laughter. "Yes," she said lightly. "Imprecise." Behind me, I could practically hear my assistant dying internally. Diplomatic first impressions were critical. And I had just proposed interspecies enthusiasm. 3. The smirk. The meeting could have unraveled there. The Thalrex were known for walking away from negotiations over minor breaches of decorum. Instead, Lyrie leaned back slightly, studying me. "Tell me, human Vale," she said, "is this enthusiasm strategic?" A few Thalrex delegates emitted faint harmonic tones, quiet amusement. I felt heat rise in my face. "It is unintentional," I said carefully, "though we are very committed to cooperation." There was a faint shift in her posture. Not dominance. Curiosity. "You are embarrassed," she observed. "Yes." "You continue speaking anyway." "Yes." Interesting. The chamber settled. The tension dissipated, though not entirely. She had every opportunity to assert superiority. Instead, she did something unexpected. She let the mistake pass. But she did not forget it. 4. The private session. After the formal session concluded, I expected a cool diplomatic distance. Instead, I received a message. Representative Lyrie Veth requests a private continuation of discussion. That was unusual and potentially dangerous. Private meetings often signaled either breakthrough or rejection. I entered the observation lounge overlooking the station's stellar viewport. Lyrie stood alone, hands clasped behind her back. The distant binary stars cast shifting light across her silver-blue skin. You recover quickly from error, she said without turning. I've had practice. Frequent errors? Frequent recoveries. She turned then, and there it was again, that subtle smirk. You are not offended by humor at your expense.
No.
Why? Because offense wastes time. Her tendrils flickered faint gold. Intrigue. Many species consider dignity paramount. So do we, I replied. But dignity doesn't require fragility. She stepped closer. You embarrassed yourself in front of 2 delegations. Yes. You did not retreat.
No.
Why? Because the objective matters more than my pride. She held my gaze for several seconds. You are unlike the others. Others? The previous human envoys. They were cautious, scripted, predictable. And I'm not.
No.
Is that a problem? Her lips curved slightly. I have not decided. What she whispered. The silence stretched comfortably this time. Then she did something unexpected. She leaned slightly closer. Close enough that her voice dropped below the translation node's automatic projection. You're funny, human. It was barely above a whisper. But it wasn't mocking. It wasn't dismissive. It was approving. I blinked. Funny was not my intent. I know. She tilted her head. You're serious, but you are also unguarded. That's a risk. Yes. But it is refreshing. Her words settled in the quiet space between us. For cycles, she continued, species have approached the Thalrex with fear. Or arrogance. Sometimes both. And humanity? You approach with determination. And reproductive enthusiasm, I muttered. Her tendrils flashed bright silver. Unmistakable amusement. Yes, she said softly. That as well. Then her expression shifted. Subtle. Serious. You did not try to dominate the moment.
No.
You accepted vulnerability. Yes. Do you understand how rare that is in diplomacy? I can guess. She stepped back slightly. Strength without rigidity, she said thoughtfully. Confidence without hostility. She looked at me directly. That changes negotiations. 6. The real discussion. Over the next hour, we spoke without formal structure. No posturing. No rigid scripts. We discussed scientific collaboration, cultural exchange, the Thalrex fear of technological contamination, humanity's fear of stagnation. You push boundaries recklessly, she said. We explore. You expand rapidly. We adapt rapidly. You are young. Yes. And ambitious. Yes. There was no hiding it. She studied me again. Most species attempt to appear less threatening than they are. And humanity? You are exactly as threatening as you appear. I couldn't argue that. And yet, she continued, you made yourself small in that chamber. I made a linguistic error. No, she corrected gently. You allowed yourself to be human. That word lingered.
Human.
In her tone, it wasn't dismissive. It was descriptive. And somehow respectful. 7. The turning point. 3 days later, the final negotiation session convened. The main chamber was full again.